Doodling Abstracts, practice number 1. Here we're going to create all these wonderful little practice sessions. Whoops, my camera jiggled a bit. My table is a bit wobbly. Sorry about that. Anyways, all you're going to do now is create ovals and fill the space with ovals. Here I'm using watercolor. If you don't have watercolor and you only have acrylics, you can do that too. And you can vary the little shapes. So I put more on one end, I just dab little bits of darker areas, I create a darker oval. You want to try to make every oval a little different. And now I'm just putting little drops of water and seeing what happens. Then I change color, and here I'm using indigo and also quinacridone gold. So again, I do the same thing. I just create each one a little differently. And of course, I went too big on the other one, so some are bigger, some are smaller. And you want to create something different for each one. And you want to have a little bit of a pattern. It gives you a challenge. So when you're doodling, it also gives you ideas. So just fill up your shape and do this now, and then we'll start doodling. Here I'm putting a little quinacridone gold, and then I let it dry. So let the pieces dry before you start your doodling. So now everything's dry and I have quite a variety. I have to say I speeded up the camera because watching somebody doodle is really slow. So I've speeded up the camera and I'm giving you ideas on how to doodle. Not that you need any, it's just that sometimes we get stumped. And I'll doodle a little bit in one area and doodle a little in the other. And I won't necessarily just doodle a whole one and then stop. But you can do anything. You create patterns, you just follow the shape of the paint. Sometimes the paint creates little lines and ridges, and that gives you an idea. And you can work with that. Here, that's what I'm doing. It's so faint on there that you can't see it on the camera. But there were little ridges there, and that's all I'm doing. See here? Little white areas, and I went around there, and now I'm just doodling around it and adding elements. There's no wrong way to do this. That's the fun of the doodling. There's only doodling, because whatever comes out of your brain is what really happens. If you get stuck, and I'm not saying you will, but sometimes I do. So what I do is I look around me and I look at maybe patterns in clothing. So maybe my neighbor's pants has flowers on it that might look good in my doodling. Maybe my home plants have ideas that they can give me. Maybe there's a pattern on my sofa or on my painting that I have on my wall. Everything is a source of information for you, and that's the beauty of doodling. There's no wrong way to do it. So here I'm using a gold marker with the black marker. I want to create something different. I want to have little waves or something. Now I'm using white because I don't really like the gold. Keep in mind, you're not going to like everything you do. And that's okay because you're testing things out with this doodling. So here I'm using a white marker and I'm doodling the white on the darker areas. As you can see, it won't show very much on the lighter areas. So I focus on the dark areas. And my marker was kind of dying out, but now it's okay again. So I can redo the white areas. This is one way of doing it for that section. I could have done 1,000 other things. So now I've decided to add little dots in there. And the dots are dark and they're gold. And I'm back with my gold. This gold is a little better, this marker, than the other one I had. And so I'm going back into it. This is an oil-based marker. And you can use those too. They just take a little longer to dry than an acrylic-based marker. So I'm adding the gold all around. That's sort of okay, but not my favorite so far. And you can look around your plants. Like I looked outside and I saw my trees just budding out, and it made me think that might be good as a doodle. So that's what I'm doing here. So anything can be an inspiration. That's the really good thing about doodling. And these little marks I've chosen to turn into circles again. What you'll find is you'll be focused on certain things at certain periods of your doodling. For a while, I doodled only rectangles, and now I find I'm going towards circles and organic kind of shapes. It's just interesting how you evolve as an artist too when you're doing your doodling. And here are some little dots. That makes it interesting. Here I'm just going to follow the outline of the paint, and it gives me some very organic shapes, and it kind of looks like flowers, and I like that. So I continue the organic shapes all around, and this one I'm just going to focus on a centerpiece. There was a little spot in the middle there, and that kind of led me to doing this. It's hard to believe what your brain will come up with sometimes. Now I'm using a pencil crayon and I'm creating a line, a white line. That's very subtle. You can work with that. If you like subtleties, you don't have to go for the black marker and the white marker and the gold marker. You can use pencil crayons too and just work with that. And I'm using that white line as a way to go around the shapes and create this linear kind of, it's more like a landscape for me than it is anything. And now you'll see that I'm into dots as well as circles. So I think I'm done. I don't like all of them, but there's some really interesting ones and some really interesting ideas that I can use in some of my paintings when I work larger. And that's really the goal of this practice session. And now I'm adding a little white on top of the gold. I didn't like the gold that much. Do I like it still? I'm not sure. So this is a marker also, and it's red, more like a burgundy red. And I'm going to use it to try and save this one. That's a little better. Actually, it's actually a lot better than it was before. So you can keep doodling on it. And then when I take off the masking tape, this is what happens. You end up with what looks like almost a mini painting of egg shapes. Do this now, and we'll see you in the next section.